everyone, it's Jessica Dybzinski, and I am so excited for this month's collaboration with the Makers with Heart. So this month, if you haven't caught some of the other videos yet, we are focusing on stencils. And I just love using stencils to create my own pattern paper. I like to use them with ink or texture paste, lots of different things. So I have this new set here in my stash and I thought it would be fun to play with it. It is one of the card front stencils in the core catalog. Let me pull this out and show it to you in just a quick second because it's cool. They are actually designed to layer on each other. So you can take that little window frame there and match it up with some of the other patterns, and some of the slimline stencils work that same way as well. So lots of really cool stencil options that are available right now, and I'm gonna use those ones right there. I am working on a scrapbook layout for this picture here of my two nieces. It is so beautiful, and I was just drawn to all the colors in the photo with that sunset behind them. So I went through my stash and pulled some different cardstock colors that I thought would match the colors in my photo. And I am going to create my own pattern paper on a couple of strips of them. Now, some of them I think I will emboss, like these two pieces here. This is the color Thistle. It's actually retired. And I will later emboss one other piece also, but for the rest of them, I'm going to do mostly some stenciling. So I have grabbed the one stencil out of that card front pack. It has a bunch of flowers on it. They look a little bit like daisies. And I'm just lining it up on my strip of cardstock here and using a little bit of washi tape to hold things down. And then I have made this mistake before, so I was careful to make sure not to make it this time. I put that sticky note down there so that way when I get my blending brush up to the top of where my stencil is, I don't end up with that harsh line if the ink goes over the stencil and onto the part of the cardstock that's not covered yet. The nice thing about holding it down with that washi tape is it does also act like a hinge. So I was able just to kind of flip up that stencil and see if I liked the ink coverage that I had going on, or if I needed to add a little bit more. And then when I was ready, I just moved my stencil up and kind of carefully placed it so that the flowers were where I wanted them to be. Again, I'm going to mask off the part of the cardstock that's not covered with the stencil. And now I am also going to do the same thing down here at the bottom with a different sticky note, again, to make sure that I don't end up with ink where I don't want it. And there is the finished piece. I love that with that glacier ink. And it was really easy just to grab my damp stamp chamois and wipe it up off the stencil. And then I wiped up my all-purpose mat as well, just to make sure I didn't get any ink on my other papers. Now moving on to my next piece, I am using the Retired Color Peacock. It's one of my all-time favorites. And I am just grabbing coordinating ink colors and moving on to another one of the stencils in that same little pack. You can see how it turned out here with all those fun polka dots on it. And I actually used the same blending brush because it's the same color family. And since Peacock is the darker of the two colors, I didn't feel like I needed to clean my brush off first before moving into Peacock. Now you can see off camera, I've gone ahead and embossed one of those strips of the purple cardstock, but I wanted to show you how I was able to do that. Most of the embossing folders that you can get have like the little notch up at the top, and so you're able just to slide your paper through and keep like moving the pattern up. That was something that I didn't realize for a long time, and it kind of came as like one of those revelations to me. And so if that's not something that you knew either, I am really excited to share that little hack with you, but probably everybody else out there already knew that, and it was just me that kind of learned that one day. All right, so continuing on with my stenciling on my cardstock here, this time I am using Papaya and Papaya ink, and I did go to an older stencil pack for this one because I wanted to find something that had some florals on it. And then at that point, I had kind of gone through and used all of the patterns that I wanted to use. So I decided to do a little bit of random stamping for one of my last pieces here of cardstock. And I had this stamp set sitting on my desk. It's the Little Things Scrapbooking stamp set, and I believe it is still available. So I'll link anything that is available in the description box down below. But I just grabbed that butterfly off of it and I twisted and I turned it so that way as I was random stamping, it ended up looking like just a butterfly pattern paper on that nectarine cardstock. And that leaves just my final piece of cardstock, the peach color. I'm just kind of laying them out so I can get a visual here. I think I'm going to do a little bit of embossing on that peach one just because the hearts are embossed on the purple strip. And that way I have some embossing about halfway through, or it just felt like it would be a little bit more spread out to me on my rainbow of papers there. All right, I know that I want to sand these embossed images down so I can reveal the white core in my cardstock. So notice that I did take my all-purpose mat and move it off of my desk because I never do any sanding on that or my Versamat because I would scratch it all up. I don't mind working directly on my desk surface. It's just an old desk. I got it at a garage sale, so I just go through and scratch it up with a little sanding block, and you can see how it reveals the white core there. So I'll do the same thing to these strips of thistle cardstock, and I just love how that turns it into like two colors, right? You've got the white and the color itself. Okay, I didn't glue anything down, but this is my basic idea. I was inspired by several different pins that I saw on Pinterest that had a similar kind of idea of strips of cardstock kind of coming in to form these V's. And I do want to miter the corners there, and I've never done that before. So I took a little scrap piece of that nectarine cardstock and I did a little practice just to make sure that I knew what I was doing. I am very much a visual learner. I'm like, I got to do this, and then I need to have it sitting on my desk so I can see it before I actually cut any of my real pieces for this layout. So basically what I did, I don't even know how I knew to do this. This was kind of like a mathematical like miracle for me. I was like, I think the angle needs to be like the same length of whatever the cardstock is. And in fact, that did work out. So I believe that this strip I'm working on right here is 3/4 of an inch. So what I did is I measured 3/4 of an inch up from the end of the cardstock and I made a little mark. And when I cut in my cutter from that mark to the opposite corner, it formed the perfect angle to miter those corners. And so what I found easy to do was, rather than using my ruler, actually, I just used the same piece of cardstock. I'm like, well, I know this is 3/4 of an inch. And so I'm just going to lay that cardstock over top of it, see where that 3/4 inch mark is coming up from the bottom of the paper. And then I left those orange pieces out, my practice pieces out. Again, visual learner, right? That way I could say to myself, okay, if I need it to come in this direction, I'm going to make my mark either on the top or the bottom of my strip of cardstock. So if you do this, I do recommend kind of having a little practice piece just so that you can see what it is you're doing. But you just take the length of your cardstock, or the width, I guess it is, and then come in that far from the end, and that will create the perfect angle for your mitered corners. I did take a little bit of time to distress the edges of all my pieces, whether with a little bit of sanding paper or some coordinating ink colors, and I am ready to start adhering these down to my base page here. So I went ahead and I made a line at that 6-inch mark. And I figured this is probably going to be the easiest way to get them on straight and exactly where they need to go. So I am just using that line there to place that angled end down. And then before I get too far, I erase a little bit of my pencil mark that I no longer need. I figured it was easier to erase it before I had too much stuff glued down. So you'll see that I kind of erase stuff along the way rather than waiting until the end. And so again here, yep, that's going to work. So I'm going to erase a little bit that will show in that gap between the two of them. Add some adhesive to the back, line it up so the end of that paper is on my 6-inch line, and then just kind of keep going from there. And it worked out perfectly. I was really quite happy with the way that those corners turned out and the look of this. I love that it is all cardstock and that I just kind of created this fun little rainbow. Okay, so I love the look of taking some regular old tissue paper and using it as one of the mats for photos. So I'm going to just put a little bit behind my photo here, and then I will do a second mat in some black cardstock. And I just think that kind of adds to that fun little distressed look that we've got going on our little V's or our triangles. So I love this photo. When I went to create this page, I had an idea in my head of using this V pattern and like a rainbow of cardstock. And I knew what I wanted to do, but I couldn't find the picture or the pictures that I wanted it to go with. And then I found this picture. I had printed it out so that I could update one of the frames in my home. And I was like, maybe I'll just scrapbook my nieces rather than my own children. And my sister was like, please go for it. She loves when I make the scrapbook pages for her kids. And honestly, they're so adorable. And her pictures are always so beautiful that sometimes I like feel more inspired by her photos than the photos of my own family. So yeah, I love scrapbooking my nieces. All right, off camera, I did go through and die cut and stamp a bunch of flowers from the, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it, the Floral Bloom stamp set. I'll leave it listed in the link, the description box down below. But I did a whole bunch of colors, same ink colors as my papers. And then I did kind of fuss around a little bit with where to place the clusters. I'm going to move that bottom one over to where the cardstock is by the time it's all said and done. But I did kind of fuss around with that a little bit. And then I thought, you know what? Before I glue any of these leaves or flowers down, I think I want to add a little bit of hand stitching to this page. These strips of colored cardstock were just calling my name. They were like, please put a whole line of stitching in the same color thread right down the middle of all of them. And I was like, I haven't done a big stitching project in a while, and I was really kind of feeling it. So I grabbed my T-square ruler, which does have those holes in it. I poked a bunch of holes, and then I did a chain link stitch using some of my embroidery thread in the same colors. I believe I used 4 strands on each of those. Normally I do like 3, but this one I wanted it to be a little bit thicker, so I went with 4 strands. And so now I can come back to my flowers and get those placed. You can see I'm moving that bottom cluster to over to where the V is. Originally, when I had them placed off kind of in the white space, I felt like it took away from the angle that was created from that V or that triangle. So I opted to move my 2 floral clusters over so that it all kind of is coming to the same point. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it made sense in my head when I was creating this page. So I'll just kind of put those around, and I won't make you watch me glue them all down. It did take a little while, but I do like to lay them out first to make sure I have enough flowers and also that I like where they're going to go. About this time, I was also thinking that maybe on some of these, perhaps on the leaves, I will stamp them directly to my white cardstock rather than using the die cut. And that way I'd have a little bit of, some die cuts and some I'm going to pop up on foam tape when I put them down, and some that are stamped directly to the paper. So I'm going to go back to my stamp set, and I'm going to do those smaller leaves in green apple, and I'm just going to put them directly onto the page. And I like the way that ended up looking. So I'm just kind of leaving things here, and I'll move it at the last second so that I make sure I get it in exactly the right spot. So you'll see here, I'm just kind of being careful. I got lucky because I did have a little bit of extra ink on my block that I didn't notice, and I almost got like a little smudge mark on my paper, but I managed to stamp it carefully, and then I was careful to check after that so that I didn't make that mistake again. But I'll get these all adhered down, some directly to the paper and some popped up on that foam tape. And so you can see those here. So pretty. I love that stamp set. The flowers in there are just gorgeous. Okay. So then I thought, well, I did some of those leaves directly to my base page. Why not add a couple of the smaller flowers from the stamp set, like around the outer part of the clusters, kind of moving into the white space. So that's what I did in some grape ink, because I don't actually have that thistle color in an ink pad, and again, it is a retired color. Right now, if you are watching this video during the month of April 2023, Close to My Heart is having a promotion called Cardstock Carnival, and you can get all of the cardstock on sale. They even have some fun bundles where there's like a red bundle and a blue bundle, and you know, some of the colors are kind of bundled together and you can get a bunch of sheets of them. So yeah, this layout came together with all cardstock and no pattern paper. I just created my own with those stencils and embossing folders. So if you guys are inspired to create with some cardstock, then make sure that you head on over to my website and check out that sale. And it's always a good time. I personally stocked up on some white daisy and some black cardstock because you always need those in your stash. All right, I still had that It's the Little Things scrapbooking stamp set sitting on my desk, and I was thinking about the title. There's this word together on there, and I thought that that would be cute kind of at the bottom of the photo. And then I was like, should I put something here in the middle, like maybe cut out with some die cuts or my Cricut, do like a bigger title? But I thought, you know, I spent so much work on creating those pattern pieces of paper and then stitching them. I don't think I want to cover any of it up. So I'm just going to let that little word together be my title. Again, this is not my photo, it's my sister's, and I don't really know what was going on, what the journaling is going to be. And so I didn't really want to do like a super specific title that I didn't know what it needed to be. But I did grab that butterfly and I stamped it in some black ink, and then I fussy cut it out, and I'm going to use them as some embellishments around my floral clusters. If you're noticing, I'm putting a little bit of liquid glue just in the center of the butterfly's body, and that way I'm holding it down and I'm kind of bending up the wings just to give them a tiny little bit of lift. Later, I might go back and put some thin 3D foam underneath their wings just to make sure that those stay lifted up. All right, and then I went into my embellishment stash and found pretty much any kind of enamel dot that I could and any color that was remotely similar to the paper colors that I've got going on here. I discovered that I didn't have enough of each size and the color that I wanted to make all of the flowers match, like the same flowers. So I did kind of mix it up a little bit, but you can see I've just added some centers to a bunch of my flowers. And then I thought, what else can I do to dress these flowers up? You know what the answer is? It's always the shimmer brush. So I grabbed my clear shimmer brush and I went over my purple flowers, which were stamped in the grape ink. And I just added a little bit of sparkle and shine to those. And that is going to be the end of my layout. It was a lot of fun playing with those stencils. And the other ladies in the Makers with Heart group have already released a couple of their videos, and tomorrow is Kim Ferguson. So make sure you check out all of the links in the description box down below to see what the other ladies did when they were using stencils on their projects. I just think it's such a fun way to have endless patterned paper and never really using up your stash. So I'll leave you with a couple of still shots here. I feel like the lighting was not the greatest in them, but I hope you can get a sense of what my layout looked like. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you have enjoyed watching and that you feel inspired. And again, if you need to stock up on any of your cardstock, make sure you check out that Cardstock Carnival sale because it is a good one. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Happy crafting. See you next time.